There are some bands, when you see them, they have the album, they play the album, it sounds exactly the same, and that's what you want. But 𝗖𝗵cie live is such a vastly different experience. They picked up their instruments and then there was just noise for like an hour and a half. And they weaved in and out from just kind of these sonic collages into like the pop songs that you recognize from the album. It was really exciting. At this point, the original lineup of Carsick has been apart for longer than they've been together. So this tour was a hot ticket. Tickets sold out while I was buying them. And that wasn't... They're veterans of the scene. Arguably, they helped create the scene for more than a decade, but they still look like a bunch of art school little weirdos. They're such icons, and this tour was so momentous that, of course, the crowd was like really into it. But like every song, when they broke into those opening bars, every song was the hit. Every song was a hit. And even the security guard to the backstage, who was totally uninterested in the first band, he got out his cell phone and was recording some of the concert too. On CD, they're a decent post-punk indie band, which is remarkable for China, and it's, remarkable. And then live, they turn into this like noise machine. Not just like indie cool, like they're Sonic Youth's favorite Chinese band, famously. But they really have a New York in the 70s cool kind of, and the front man, he has that awkwardness of David Byrne without being quite so self-effacing, and the kind of swagger of Lou Reed if he didn't hate you as well. And it just was like so captivating to watch. 𝗖𝗵cie, the bassist, he just is like long and lanky, and his bass is also long and lanky, and this mop of hair that's a little bit curly. And 𝗖𝗵cie, the drummer, she just is a machine. She has that like boom, 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 boom. It's almost like big band jazz drumming, and from then on, any style, she can command it, and she's raising her arms over her head and just pounding like mad, although not in a messy way, always very, very controlled and very part of the moment. While the frontman and guitarist 𝗖𝗵cie, I think is his name. Now I forget. I'll just say frontman. Let me get this name. 𝗖𝗵cie is the lead guitarist, and he's been the member. He's kept Carsick going this whole time. But he was just all in black, this skinny little cool dude wearing sunglasses at night. 𝗖𝗵cie was really, he was a star. Like, it's weird to talk of like indie star presence, but he had indie star presence, I think. Lou Reed cool with a little bit of David Byrne angularity. These songs are more than a decade old, but they all felt really fresh. And I mean, of course, every song was greeted with the fans' approval. And they go back and forth, they weave in and out of the real heavy noise, and then they bring it back to the pop, and you can almost sing along. kind of effortlessly almost. They were really, it didn't seem like this was a band that essentially broke up 10 years ago. But the songs themselves were living organisms on stage, weaving in and out, like I said, into the melody and then devolving into noise. And even like bleeding into each other. There was no real banter between songs. They just kind of like hung out with their instruments. These songs were still living organisms, and they played together really. They were in concert. And in true noise rock fashion, it was not always pleasant, the sound they were making, but it became like an ecstatic pain almost. The frontman picked up like a violin bow and was just kind of wailing on his guitar at one point, and it was really exciting. And also at the same time, like, they would pass the solo from one to another. I brought up jazz right now, inadvertently. It was not jazz sounding, but it was just the structure or lack of structure, the improvisation. Talk myself into a corner. What is happening? And I think in part of all three of them in different ways in their side projects go more into kind of experimental and drone and sound collage. So I think this is in a pop way where they can experiment and push the limits of what is music. And it was just, I mean, these songs are still so vital, and it doesn't feel like a band going through the motions. So it was really exciting to watch. But it actually between the three instruments and the voice, they had a very like carefully layered sound. Like if the bass was like washy and echoey, the guitar would be very staccato and sharp, and they just like had these careful layers within the big sound. And I mean, it's only three people, but it was just like, it almost like blew the crowd away. But of course they ended with 𝗖𝗵cie, which is their big kind of underground for all of indie rock in China anthem. And as is customary, because it's a Communist Party headquarters and a brand of cigarettes, the crowd chucked cigarettes at the band as they played. It's funny to watch cigarettes being thrown because they're so light. It's kind of a pathetic little flight. But it was a whole night of coming together, and then this like cathartic, we are rock and roll. Carsick Cars on CD was like a really fun find. We were really excited when however we came across them, the internet. But we've listened to those albums so much over the years, and then to see them live and to see that even, to see it as not just catchy tunes, but like almost an act of rebellion and dissidence. It was so exciting. It was so much fun, and I'm so glad we snapped up those last 2 tickets. And then, you know, it was just almost an afterthought to come out and do We Can Listen, You Can Listen, You Can Talk as the encore. Just like a quick little, all right, we love you, goodbye, go home. But it was like our ears were ringing for